So they were determined at that time to reinvent the company. So I thought that would be an interesting opportunity, because one thing, again, going into my core belief, why do I study computer science? Is I believe that technology has a way to improve lives. If I can help a company change the fate of its direction, I thought that's a pretty cool way to launch a career. So I joined JCPenney as a management trainee and started with the re-engineering of their centralized system to go distributed. So in 1989, I don't know whether you folks recall, but middleware and distributed system is a very new terminology at that time. People understand centralized processing through mainframe. There was the early stage of the rise of PC, but no one really took PC seriously as a distributed computing terminal. So this is the first time in a company of the size of JCPenney, which is a Fortune 100 company, to take the whole company and go distributed. That was a really interesting way for me to launch my career. So I learned all this stuff in school at UT, University of Texas. So I know enough about computer science. But the moment I got to JCPenney, I had to learn a new programming language called COBOL. Because, as you know, mainframe system runs on COBOL. That's the programming language. JCL, job control language, is the control environment to support the operations of the mainframe. So that's one thing I learned right away, my first job, is that what I learned in college, for the most part, will not apply in real world, as far as the book knowledge. But what I learned in college, what I gained from college, is the ability to analyze and solve problems, and ability to learn and adapt myself. And that's the most important thing I got from my college education, is that mental training to do that. So I was able to learn JCL and COBOL on the job, and was able to start understanding the mainframe code enough to start re-implementing them in C on a 386 machine. It was considered quite advanced at the time, 386. So JCPenney was my first job. I started working and started developing the system. I was responsible for the messaging software to allow for all these point of sales terminal at the store to communicate to the back office. So all the store manager can actually run the store using the back office system. To you, it's common day, everyday knowledge, but back in 1989, it was quite revolutionary that a store manager is empowered to actually change price, change commission, change inventory level, and so on and so forth. So that was quite interesting. So I learned one thing at that time from that first job, is that, as I mentioned earlier, change is the only constant. The question is less about what you've done before, it's how you earn your pay every day. I earned my pay by learning JCL, by learning COBOL on the job, and applying myself to transform the mainframe logic into the distributed system. I was able to help JCPenney launch this 20 months later, and JCPenney actually got an award from Computer World magazine at the time for this advancement. And in fact, JCPenney now is the US #1 retailer, and it's got something to do with the fact that they were able to reinvent themselves back in those days. So another thing I learned is that a company must always learn to reinvent themselves. You can't start with a business model and expect that business model to have permanence. I think one thing that I learned from the exercise, beyond the fact that I have to constantly reinvent myself, is that the company also must reinvent itself. And I think that hypothesis has been proven over and over again. There's a book written by a guy called Michael Hammer. He's the father. So what's the name of that book, Bernard? This is re-engineering.
No, re-engineering your organization.
Yes. So the whole notion of thank you. I will give this shirt to you, but since you work for YTL, I can't give this shirt to you. We reserve this shirt for the coolest guy in the crowd. So reinventing a company is, you start with a certain business proposition, with a certain business promise. And if you deliver on that business promise, people will reward you. But it doesn't mean that people will continue to reward you. You have to be in tune with the times, which is the case of JCPenney. So that was my first job. That was quite interesting. And I was really having a good time with my job. So I have no desire of leaving JCPenney. I was there for 2.5, almost 3 years. That's the time that I thought that, well, it's time for, my mother asked me to stay in the United States. So I can't stay in the United States by having a work permit, right? So after 2 years, I thought, well, I've earned my pay. I've shown my worth to the company. Ought to be time for the company to help me as well by applying my green card. So I approached the HR organization and said, hey, it's time to do my green card. And that's what they told me when I first started the job, that they would do that, except that I didn't get that in writing. So went to the HR organization and said, well, Mr. Lee, like to help you, but we have 1,500 stores around the country. We don't have the logistic to actually support you, because if I were to hire you, or convert you into green card, I have to post your job across all our locations to ensure that no qualified American apply for the job. If they do, we will have to take them. And we don't have the logistics to do that posting across 1,500 stores and all our offices. We don't want to set a precedence. So that was a bummer. So I thought, well, maybe I should sign up for another job. So I was very open about it. I talked to my manager. My manager was a very good sponsor of me, because certainly I've shown some value to him. So we tried to lobby, and unfortunately they still got back the same pushback. But he said, very gracious, he said, well, go ahead and look for another job. Meanwhile, stay here, because we need your help. But once you find another job, we won't slow you down. So that was quite good. And I do believe that he only do that to me and extend that to me because I deliver value to him. Because at the end of the day, it's always an exchange of value. If someone will do you a favor, I hope that I have earned enough of his trust and credibility so that he can extend a favor to me. So in any case, I took about 2 months for me to talk to headhunters and so on, and I found this interesting opportunity with Sprint. So you heard from my introduction that I was at Sprint for 15 years, which is a long time, isn't it? But let me explain how that all happened. I got to Sprint because Sprint was actually looking to reinvent itself as well. Sprint at the time, I don't know whether you recall, Sprint is the first operator in the United States to launch a nationwide fiber optics network. So when Sprint was launching this fiber optics network, they need to ensure that they have the system to manage the network. If you look at the fiber optics network, it spans across the entire United States, which in essence is a large distributed system. So the skill that I gained at JCPenney in doing middleware, messaging software, high-speed messaging software, turned into an interesting skill that Sprint need to do what it does, to manage this optical network. So that's how I got into this opportunity at Sprint. They said, well, I could use some guy that understands the notion of distributed system and messaging software. So why don't you come join us? So that's how I joined Sprint. Now, I learned from my previous experience that it's good to ask for things in writing sometimes. So I said, well, can you sponsor my green card? And he said, absolutely. Can you put in the offer letter? Absolutely. Done. So I started at Sprint. So when I started at Sprint, it was very interesting. Sprint had this organization called Advanced Technology Organization that is responsible for this project. So just like any big company in America, whenever you start something new, and that you haven't done before, you call it essential. Okay, it may not be essential all the time, but you got the idea. Who's our sponsor? PricewaterhouseCoopers as well. But you got the idea. You call a management consulting company and say, hey, bring me some smart guys, and they will kick this project off. So I walk into the office, the first day of my job, and across the entire organization, there were 120 people, and out of which 80 of them are from Accenture. So that's how they seeded the organization. Basically, some senior guys Sprint said, well, we really do this project, it's very important for the company. And the next thing they did is that they called a partner at Accenture or Anderson Consulting at that time, or PricewaterhouseCoopers, and said, we need to work this project. Why don't you send some guys? We start this process, so on and so forth. So they sent about 80 guys over. In fact, the director of the organization is also an Anderson Consulting guy. So I started this project at Sprint, actually reporting to an Anderson guy. And I walked into the job the first day, and they said, well, Wayne, you're going to join this architecture organization. I said, well, architecture, what's architecture? If you ask me to write C++ modules, no problem. Write messaging software, no problem. But what's C++, what is architecture? So that was 1993. So this Anderson guy came to me and said, well, Wayne, let's just talk about what you like. They know that I like cars. They said, okay, a good software engineer can fix a brand of car, let's say Honda. But a good architect is one that understands all brands of cars and know what's good for what. So I said, okay, I got a general idea now. So I started in the architecture team, building the messaging architecture for Sprint's fiber optics network. And I was brought in as the software engineer